Thanks for coming to the last panel of the conference. My name is John Warren, and I'm Director of the Graduate Program in Publishing at the George Washington University, and really excited to have this panel here today. Some amazing artists and authors. So I'm going to introduce them alphabetically by first name, and then we'll go into the questions. So I'm going to read very brief bios of them, but I think you can find their bios on the website. So first we have Carlos Sanchez, all the way to my right. Carlos is from Barcelona, Spain. He works as a designer, illustrator, and comic artist in Barcelona. In 2025, his debut title called Rune, A Tale of 1,000 Faces, became the first graphic novel to win a Waterstones Children's Book Prize novel at the Week Junior Awards in 2025, and later won Best Graphic Novel at the British Book Design and Production Awards. His forthcoming book, Rune, Tale of Obsidian Maze, published by Flying Eye Books, is due for release in November this year, and they had copies at the booth. So congratulations, Carlos. Then to my immediate right, we have Carly Shooster. Carly is a Jewish-American comics artist based in Gainesville, Florida. She holds a BA in art history from University of Florida and an MFA in comics from California College of the Arts. She's assistant director of the Sequential Artists Workshop, and her graphic novel, Mamita, which explores themes of motherhood, childhood, and displacement with a dash of magical realism, will be published by Field Mouse Press in 2027. And then next to Carlos is Ingrīda Pičukāne. She's an artist and teacher currently working as an animation and comics instructor at the Riga Art and Media School in Latvia. She studied painting, graphic design at the Art Academy of Latvia and animation at the Estonian Academy of Arts. She works in comics, drawing, video, animation, installation, murals, and live performance. In 2016, her first comic book, Three Sisters, which received positive reviews from comics critics around the world, was published. In 2023, her comic book, Jalais Seljums, I'm pronouncing that horribly, in collaboration with artist Viviana Maria Stanislavska. And then this year, her third book was published, and we'll see some pictures of that. And then last but not least, Sanika Phawde. Sanika Phawde is an illustrator, educator, cartoonist, and reportage artist born and raised in India and based in Boston. Through autobiographical comics, interviews, drawings, their work strives to document and communicate instances of emotional connection, queer immigrant culture, the ridiculousness of low-level family tensions, I can understand that, and deeper sentiments hiding in the heart of it. Her comic series, Wedding Juice and Other Melodramas, just won the 2025 Ignatz Award for Outstanding Series. So congratulations, Sanika. All right, so you can see we've got a great panel. So let's start with each of you talk about origin stories. Can you share a little bit about your trajectory, how you came to write and illustrate comics and graphic novels? And one thing I'll mention is I've got some slides that are from all the artists, and I'm just going to keep strolling through them as they're talking. So, and they may point to certain ones, but you can see images from their art. So, Carlos, let's start with you, and we'll go down. We'll talk a little bit about how you got involved in comics.
And also, like, I apologize in advance if my English is not perfect. I'm from Spain, and it's been such a long day today, a long weekend. But I will try my best. Actually, like, I've been drawing always. Don't remember a moment of my life that I didn't draw. I don't know. I basically born with a pencil in my hand. But I have been like interested in graphic novels since I read Spider-Man for the first time. I was like 7-8 years old when it was published in Spain. They were making kind of a nice edition of like the comics of the American comics from the 70s, 80s, just before they released the first movie. And I read that with 7-8 years old. I didn't understand absolutely nothing, but I love the colors, I love the panels, the speech bubbles, the onomatopoeias. It was like amazing, and I started making my own comics when I was that age. Well, I didn't stop since then. I get a little lost in the way. I studied philosophy, I studied design, but at the end I came back to the thing that I really wanted, that it was making comics. That's why I'm here. How about you?
Okay, hello. Also, thank you for having me here, and also I'm sorry about my English; it's not perfect. So yeah, I'm from Latvia, and I was born in USSR. I'm quite old. So the thing is that actually in Latvia, growing up in the 80s, 90s, there were almost none of comics. There was some Donald Duck and Bitstrup, and that's all. We don't have actually comics tradition. But I did when I was kid. I did some copies. I remember I did a book that was full of different Mickey Mouses, and I loved America. Although it was like officially it was enemy of USSR, but every person in USSR wanted to get in America. Actually, me too. And when I was small, I was sure that I will never be in USA. But I'm here. So yes, my way, some kind of in arts, it's quite linear. I studied painting in art school 6 years. Then I went to study graphic design, and then I went to study animation. So I did study a lot of arts. I'm classically educated, but I did draw comics when I was really like a small kid, or tried to draw as I thought comics look like with my small knowledge. But then I stopped and I did more like fine arts, let's say. And then happened thing that in 18 years ago, David Shilter, that is my publisher, he came to Latvia for his girlfriend, Zana Zainčkauska, and they both together, like actually the story is that he came to Latvia and wanted to buy some comics and find out that there are none. So he decided to be a publisher and to make this. So he's kind of created this community, and I knew them and they knew me, and they saw my stuff and they liked it, and they started to publish me. So actually it was, I don't know if they wouldn't publish me, and I am quite lazy actually. And if they wouldn't publish me, probably I wouldn't be a comics artist. But as also John mentioned, I do a lot of different other stuff. But I really love comics medium because I like also to write, and I think it's really great medium where I can draw and write and create my stories. So Thank you.
Why don't we go with you?
Hi, I'm Sanika. I grew up in India and I didn't have a ton of comics around me. We had Amar Chitrakatha, which were these like really beautifully illustrated comics about Indian mythology, but the copies that I had were missing pages and very hard to follow. I didn't know what was going on. And then we had, I found like an anthology of Mad magazines in my house, but nobody claimed it. Like no one said it was theirs. And also I couldn't understand the jokes. And the phrases like went over my head, but I really enjoyed them. And I couldn't find comics for a while, but I found Ali Brash's Hyperbole and a Half. I found like Depression Part 2 during like the Tumblr era. And that I never related to anything the way I did to that comic. And I was just like, I didn't even know it was a comic. I was like, oh, this is vlogs. And blogs is the future. We're going to be a blogger. And then after that, I moved to New York to study communication design, realized I did not care about it, and I found myself surrounded by people who were making comics. I went to my first ever comics fair, which was Comic Arts Brooklyn. The first person I saw at the fair was A.D. Pratt. I don't know if y'all saw his work. His Big Apple at Matinee was nominated for an Ignatz. He's so cool. But I basically started to like find people who were doing really cool, weird things and making it themselves, and weren't like waiting for other people. And that made me feel really excited. And I begged Gabriel Bell to let me be her intern, and one summer, and she was very kind. She was like, "Sure." And I would like show up at her apartment with like nothing basically, and she would ink and sketch her comics, ink and scan her comics, and I would like color them, and she would change all the colors later, but she just needed someone to like fill the space. And we would like talk, and she'd be like, "Oh, you talk about your mom a lot. Like, do you make comics about her?" And I was like, "No, like that would disrupt my life." And she was like, "That's how you know it's worth it." And all this to say, I really feel like I do comics now because she was right, and it really helps with my mental health. And I've realized that making comics about my family actually improves my relationship with them, because I'm forced to think not that like, oh, I'm upset with this person, but instead I'll be like, my character has a problem with this character. And what is this character's intentions for behaving this way? It's like a forced empathy, and it's really helped me actually understand my family. And that's what I do now.
That's really cool. I've been making art forever. My dad's an artist, and he sort of, those four of us total, and I've been that took to it. So he was like, "Okay, great. You get all the art supplies of anything you ever want." And I was obsessed with but I didn't make comics, but I made comics of like Athena, with an owl or something when I was little. And then I did art when I was getting older, but I kind of gave it up to try to become a doctor. That didn't work. I failed chemistry like 8 times. And then I studied art history because I was like, I'm still afraid of art, like in my undergrad. And then my partner ended up taking a class with Tom Hart at University of Florida. And my partner was like, "Hey, this guy makes comics. Like, I feel like you might like comics." So I didn't get into comics until I was like 20, 22. And then I read Persepolis, and I read Fun Home, Mouse, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is amazing." And I took the year-long intensive at SAW Sequential Artist Workshop. And that's where I work now. And I came to my book similarly to Sanika's journey. I was on the phone with my bobit, and my mom and her have always had a hard relationship, and I learned that my grandmother fell into a coma for a few months after she gave birth to my mom, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be you in a graphic novel." And I paired that graphic novel with a graphic adaptation of a book by Thorne Wilder. So that's kind of my journey into comics. Yeah, and that's my grandma. Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to talk about color. Can you each speak about your approach to colors? I noticed each of you have quite specific color palettes and approaches to color. So talk about your latest work or works and how you came to decide on your color palette. And let's go reverse. We'll start with you on this one first.
Sure. I read Asterios Pollitt by David Mazzucchelli, and I was like, these are the perfect colors. And I had been doing full color comics, and I was getting really overwhelmed and a little like sad about making comics because I couldn't quite choose the colors right, and it wasn't turning out the way I wanted it to. And I read Asterios Pollitt, and I was like, these are the colors. This is what I'm going to do. So I did a bunch of color testing for pages before I decided to make the final chapters. And I thought it'd be really nice to split up, since I have 2 different time periods, it'd be really nice to split up my book into purple pages and blue pages, and yellow would be the highlight for everything. But now I just work from 3 colors for this whole book, and it limits all my choices, which has been very healthy for me. So I think that answers the question.
We'll come back to it. How about Sanika?
I really wanted this book to feel overwhelming and oversaturated and all the things that I felt during this part of my life, and it's very like, I wanted it to feel really like sweet and really warm, but also uncomfortable at the same time, because I felt like a wedding is so decadent, and if it does not involve decisions that you actually want, it can be hard to express that you are unhappy about the love that someone's showering on you. And in order to show that, I wanted to use these colors that would be almost like too sweet or too bright or too much, to show that juxtaposition. Because I also, at the end of the day, wanted it to feel good to look at, because the more I made the comic, the more I realized that I can't really be mad at someone for loving you so much that they want to give you the perfect day, even if it's, their idea of the perfect day is not your idea of it and has nothing to do with you. But the sentiment is precious. And so I was trying to find that through color, that feeling.
For me, it's like I don't have like for colors like special meanings. I have like usually I kind of, as I have this painter's background, I'm like painter, I guess. But I do nowadays I do use super cheap markers. So actually my color palette is also like kind of dictated by this cheap markers selection. The story is like that because I started painting and then I started graphic design. I stopped to paint. Then I wanted to come back to painting, but I was not kind of brave enough, and I thought that I will be not so good as I was. So I just went to nearby shop and bought the cheapest children markers, and it became like kind of my significant style nowadays. And it's also a bit for me like social message. I also do social art, and for me it's also very important to show that you can do stuff with cheap materials. You don't need to buy something very, and actually I end up, one of my comics was in Latvian National Museum of Arts, 3 Sisters actually. It was a big exhibition about women's art, and my comics also was there, the only comics that was there. And I was very happy that they chose this particular comics, because in Latvia there are very strong stereotypes about comics, that comics is for children, that it's not really like that it's kind of low art. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's so it's getting better. But yeah, so my colors, and I have, one color is important. I really like orange. It's really bright. And I also like to work with super bright colors and in comics. And usually my characters have orange hair. So yeah, that's it. But yeah, I don't have this very conscious selection of colors. I just go with the flow, how I feel it, and just markers help me. It's like
for me, I'm going to be totally honest with you. When I was working in Rune colors, it was such a pain. I had such a trouble. I'm an illustrator as well, and I have to say, my illustrations are quite colorful. I like vivid colors in them. But always when I was making a zine, when I was making some like auto-published comic, I was like, no, I wasn't trying to make any color. I was making more black and white, or like a very like limited palette, like 2-3 colors. And when I started working in Rune, they kind of told me like, hey, well, it's super cool that you will like use like colors like in your illustrations, like very colorful, like that every page that have like thousands of details, every detail will have like a nice color, and every little part of the page will be like, amazing to look at. And I almost died like trying, like I just started using colors and colors and colors, and I remember like painting a page for like 15 hours, like, and seeing it and saying that doesn't work, and trying with the next page with the same colors and thinking that doesn't work. Finally, like, I was working with a designer from the editorial that was kind of helping me with some little things like bubble, speech bubbles, and like with the lettering and stuff. And she told me like, hey, just limit your palette, like search for like a few colors that you like and that you can use the characters and the backgrounds. And then it started kind of an odyssey. I started to coloring with like, I was choosing like 5-6 colors, and I was trying to color like a few pages with this color. My partner that is also an illustrator was helping me. We were both like for a few days like trying to find like the perfect palette. And finally with it, we found like a palette that worked quite well, like in the characters and in the background, like it's quite like colorful, but also have like kind of like pastel colors. And it works well because like it's not only that like it's the same palette constantly, are the same colors, but they are using different, depending of the scene, depending of the scenario, they are using in some way or another. Like, for example, there's like a scene that like all the backgrounds are kind of blue because they are like kind of in forest, but like also like these same blues are the ones that like are wearing the characters when they are in another like place in a village where the background colors are more like pinkish. And that's it. Like it took me like a while to find this. I think that it took me months to find this chromatic palette. But now I'm super happy because I can do this like every page, and it makes my work really easy because it's like, okay, I have this color, I cannot use nothing out of here. So yeah, I know that the characters have this color and that I can use this other color for the background. That's it. Yeah, I think that's fine.
So let's follow up a little bit with each of you. So for Carlos, how does your work in color amplify the kind of dreamlike and sort of otherworldly, magical aspect of Rune?
I would say that in a few ways, there is like a little change of color palette. There is like a page, like I think that one of the first ones. Yeah, this one. Well, my comic starts in kind of our world, or like a world similar to our world, where the two main characters are bullied. These guys there are the bullies. In these pages, the colors are very fade. They are kind of like not that saturated. They kind of show a little like the gloomy feeling of the characters. You know that anything that happens in this scene where the colors are fade is going to be bad for them. But once they cross like the forest where they get lost and they arrive to the new world where the adventure happens, like the color starts to be more saturated, and finally we start having like this kind of like fully saturated colors, lots of pink, lots of blues. And yeah, I'm using this technique. They kind of like are like flashbacks of little scenes from this other world, and when we come back to this world, the colors are always more saturated to give this kind of more gloomy feeling. And later, like one aspect that I find kind of interesting that I work with that with the designer, that like, well, the main character is she belongs to the deaf community. She speaks by sign language, and we created kind of a system of how to show when the character was speaking through signs or speaking through voice. And we have like the regular bubble, speech bubbles, that they're kind of like white, yellowish. But later, each character that speaks through signs have like another type of bubble that also are kind of you can recognize whose character is talking by the color. Like the main character have a yellow, like her friends have like kind of like a purplish. The character here we can see that have a blue. And I kind of felt a little to identify each character when they're like also like to make this differentiation between like the loud speaking and the silent speaking.
And Ingrida, I see in your work a lot of sort of myth and memory and folk tradition. So can you talk about your approach to color in these situations?
Yeah, for me it's like also maybe it's not so partially it's also conscious, but yeah, I'm really inspired by medieval art, and also I kind of, as I said, as we didn't have any comics, almost none comics in USSR, I kind of it's not only me, but we have really strong indie comic scene in Latvia, and still we don't have kind of very poor mainstream comics, so our mainstream is indie. It's a bit ironic, but yeah, it's so a lot of artists come from fine arts, and me too, and I kind of invented my style because it's like I do sometimes also more like classical comics with panels and different styles, but this one style is kind of long stories that there are no panels, and it goes like in medieval arts that in one painting, for example, you can see the Jesus with a group coming from very far away, and then more nearby, so it's everything happening in one panel, let's say. So yes, and I also love outsider art, and I just, when I got the questions, I tried to think about it, this like impacts, and maybe I have also some kind of woodcut feeling, because I like to use this strong brown line, and it could be woodcut, and woodcut actually, it was like there are these folk art traditions, that there are these folkish woodcuts that people like could buy for very cheap money. There were some texts and also some images, and it's like, and of course, I don't know, is it like color? Maybe also this brightness of markers. It's also a bit like something that is like if you. I think maybe it's also a stereotype, but like people like something that is bright. so if you do something for people, you do something bright and it catch your eyes. Actually, I worked also in ad agencies. If you want to sell something, it better be bright. But I'm not super successful yet in that selling stuff. But I'm trying. But I think it's. I have this, and talking about mythology, let's say I kind of create my own mythology, because I like to play with characters that are kind of, you cannot really say where they come from, but the environment is very contemporary. For example, forest is very polluted. I draw really like Latvian forest. I like to go to forest, and it's very polluted, and I like to pick up mushrooms. So there are certain mushrooms, certain plants, of course, it also dictates colors. So I kind of, I'm very inspired by nature as well. I go to nature and I pick up eatable plants and also mushrooms, and I draw them, and that colors comes also from straight from the nature. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Sanika, you touched on this a little bit already, but talk a little bit more about how you use color to kind of capture the sensory overload and just like emotional highs and lows of a wedding.
I want to say that that was fascinating to hear the logic behind your like choice of color. I feel like I'm very literal when it comes to choosing color, because, for example, if I want something to be really decadent and sweet looking, I'll use colors that I've seen in candy, or like colors that I have associated with like Indian sweets or like snacks or junk food and like stuff like that. And for example, in the first Wedding Juice comic, when the juice comes up on the page, like I'm trying to make it look beautiful using line work, but then the colors are like neon green and kind of ghastly because I'm allergic to the juice, and I'm trying to take other things that people might associate with a certain color and use that association to fulfill what I'm trying to get them to feel. Yeah, so it's pretty literal.
They're definitely very vivid, and as Ingrida said, you want to sell something, make it bright. Okay, Carly, how about you? You also touched on this a little bit, but your Mamita explores family history and heritage, and so was your color palette influenced by your personal family memories, or by the story?
I just want to say it's cool how different all of us are working in color, so that's really cool that like we're all, yeah, anyway. So my color is place-based. It's not really based on necessarily memory so much as just wanting the reader to know, okay, we're in a blue chapter, we're in 1960s New York. Oh, we're in a purple chapter, we're in 1800s Lima, Peru. And something I started doing, I think it's in the top panel there. There's like a yellow overlay on specifically flashback pages to Buenos Aires, where my family's from. Sorry. Sure, yeah, let's see. I think, yeah, okay, that's a better example. So there are blue, white, and yellow pages that are just blue, white, and yellow, and then there are pages like this that are totally covered in yellow, like dump water and then put the yellow on it, so that it gives it, I guess, more of like this is back in the day, even more than just like, this story takes place in 1969, but then, I won't get into the weeds about that, but basically I used the color to indicate place and time in a literal way. So instead of using it as a way to indicate like a feeling like, sweet or sickly, it's more of like, oh, we're in Argentina, we're in New York, we're in, based on these colors.
Let's talk a little bit about emotion, and some of you have already touched on this a little bit, but obviously color has like very emotional quality. So how do you use color to evoke emotion or to kind of set the tone? Are there certain colors or certain palettes that you come back to? And I guess another question is like, are there certain colors that you always avoid? I had a boss once that like, she hated green, so like don't have green in anything. I don't know, there's nothing wrong with green. But anyway, how do you use colors for emotion? Talk about that. Let's start with you.
Actually, I avoid all the green. You cannot find like a piece of green or I never use black neither. Like all mine, I never bluish kind of like garment. But well, about emotion. I don't know. I love the work of I love Hellboy, and I love the work of Mike McNulty. Kind of saying his name correctly. But I love like most of his early works that he had, like for example in the Baba Yaga history, he had like this like kind of like panels that they were like with like really much black ink, but suddenly it was like kind of like a background of yellow or a background of red. This was giving so much emotion. My work has so much more color, so I cannot do that. But yeah, I use like the color for give like kind of like some maybe some emotion, some amplification. I use like a lot of like dark pink or red for like moments of tension, moments of like when characters are arguing, for example. And also I use like I just could match the background color. Like there is like this kind of witch house where the background is normally like yellow, and you can expect that all the things that happen with kind of like this yellowish background are like moments of like kind of calm, moments of like stop and kind of like talk or like see what is happening. When the colors get more like kind of like purplish, it kind of like shows like a little more like a dangerous situation, like when for example like the characters are walking in a forest. The forest they have like this like kind of like more blue colors because we don't have green there. And these blues started kind of like going to more purple color, that is going to happen something. And I used also like, for example, in this page, like that the background is this kind of like pinky red. I use that like quite much for memories, for flashbacks. That is something that I do in both of the comics. And I think that, I don't know, I think that it gives so much like the idea that like that's something that is in the background is happening, but it's not happening right now. It's like something that the character is not writing. That's so much thing. Like, there's like a few other things of one there, but like, that's it.
Anybody else? Ingrida, would you like to comment?
Yeah, as I said, it's funny that because I have a lot of green, the forest is green and it gets very calming color. In general. So yeah, for me, actually, I think that yeah, as I said, it's like if you speak about Three Sisters, this is from Three Sisters. It's like, yeah, I like to make this intensive colors, and some people are saying that it looks a bit like pointillism, so it makes like this glittering colors and mixing up in your eye. And I don't know, it's like for me, I think I work with emotions more through character poses, and also for me, it's very important that there is white space, which with this white space I also work a lot. These empty spaces are important. They make like also this composition is kind of dictating that there are these white spaces. So this kind of white color is very important. This empty that becomes sometimes like color of the skin color, or just empty spaces or color of the water, for example. So it's maybe it's for me it's important because I like to make comics really layered. So there are very many meanings in it, and it's important just to show kind of, I don't know, that this jittering color makes you feel a bit like intense and unsettling because there is something happening, something weird happening, and it's just but it's kind of don't change much. So all the time you are in this a bit like jittery feeling, and yeah.
I was specifically with Wedding Juice. I was trying to create throughout that series, I'm trying to create 3 different tones. And so I've made 3 color palettes for 3 different tones. The first one is like all the stories that take place in Boston. But it's not more like based on the place. It's like, I don't know if this is like a scientific thing, or maybe this is just something that I think is real, and I don't know. Maybe fact check it, and I could be wrong. But I feel like light is different in different places. And in Boston, I feel like the light is very like blue, green, especially in the winter. And in India, in the winter, the light is orange. And that helps with the storytelling and getting out the emotion, because I feel like Boston's there every day, and this character is like trying to plan a wedding like halfway across the world. And so it's like they're being faced by their I'm saying they because sometimes I just think about these characters as characters, even though it's my life. But like at that time, I was only trying to think about like, okay, what's the next step? What do I have to do next in my life to like, chores and stuff like that while dealing with that. But when I draw my family over the phone and they're in India, I draw them in this like different light, and their world is planning them. They're so into it, and it also helps because orange is more nostalgic as a color, and like gray is more muted. And to me, gray is kind of like stressful as a color and like more cold. And so it works in creating those 2 meanings at the same time. And the third tone that I'm trying to create is like all the conversations that happen over only electronical things. So it's in that liminal space, and there's no light really. And I try to make it mechanical as much as I can, and try to like mimic like a phone screen and the highlight that goes over a phone screen when you're like looking at it in a different light. Yeah, I hope that answers that question. But yeah.
I like to use yellow as my big emotion color, and I think because of the limited palette, it really helps. I'll have pages and pages. So Carlos, I don't use any black in my book at all. It's all blue or purple inks. And in dream sequences, I'll combine all. This is a dream sequence where she's jumping into the matzo ball. It's not really wise because it's really hot. But yeah, her mother is basically saying like, can't have enough napkins, and she's in a coma, so she's just envisioning like dancing potatoes and dancing napkins. And the yellow is sort of this like big emotion color. So I think on the next slide, or there's one coming up. Oh, there, yeah. So the phone is ringing. So a lot of pages will just look like all blue. But it's a tense moment when the phone rings. So I use the yellow to be like, hey reader, this is really intense. You should have a reaction to this if you want to. So yeah, I I think out of all this, I kept it like the most pared down. Like it's like just the 3 colors and there's barely any mixing. Yeah.
I have a few other questions, but I want to give the audience a chance also. Does anybody have a question, or if you want to start thinking of questions, go ahead. You all hear that okay? How the printing process affects your color picks?
In my case, I think that I was kind of like a pain in the ass for my tutorial, because normally, they ask for, or it's quite usual that you just like, as they print in Picukane, like normally the line art is printing black and like later like the colors are add. And as I don't use black, that was kind of like a little like could be problematic, because sometimes Picukane like stick perfectly depending of the printing technique. But I also felt like the line that I was working with like a designer, she was taking really care of like that wouldn't happen. She was giving me a lot of tips, like depending if how you send the color, they can get like darkened, or like once you. I normally work in HP, like sorry, RGB. Thank you. And later I transform. I converted to the
CMYK.
Thank you, sorry, that I have like the Spanish version of my mind. And then I kind of correct like the things. And I have to be a little careful, and they got me a few tips, because like the colors like that are like so vivid in the screen, like they kind of like get a little fade, and I have to like rework them a little. And also, I have like a time for explain a little like story. I printed the first comic in with 20 books in English. The colors were perfect because the designer was like working amazingly. She kind of like asked for the proof. She was checking the proof was perfect. It was something that had to be changed. She was telling me, and we were working on that. And then like they sent like it was a Spanish editorial bought the right, and they printed. They make like a Spanish edition and a Catalan edition. For the Spanish edition, they use like Picukane to like kind of like a traditional way of printing. The colors were quite similar to the English version. But for the Catalan edition, they make a digital printing because like they wanted to print less of them, and it was kind of like easier, less work, to prepare the files for the Picukane Catalan as well. And I have to say, like the colors were like very. They didn't really care, because at the end, like they didn't like sell like that. They were just going to sell like a few copies, that's all. And there's like kind of like a work on that. In my case, like I had like the luck with like the designer was helping me with that. But for example, I noticed that when there's not a designer just taking care of their like a person of the printing or of the editorial like working like so that the colors look good, it's hard as you as an artist, as an author, like to control it. Like at the end, it's like just like to be careful that the printer like makes it correctly and to care about.
Anybody else?
It's like funny that for me it's like vice versa, how I impact printing by using my colors, because I have super bright colors, and it's like I wish to have a one-day book when I will be 100 years old, all with spot colors, like all pompons, like it would be like 10 maybe. So, but now I succeeded, because my first like 3 sisters were printed, just the cover was with this one spot color with this my significant orange, but then my last book is printed, all book is printed with CMYK, that we call SPX in Latvian, and plus 3 spot colors, all of the book. But it was a big struggle. We got money, and it was like really, and it looks much closer as I wish my comics would look like. But yeah, I got also artists who helped me a lot with splitting these colors. And actually there were one French publisher who was talking with David, with Kush publisher, and he said it's impossible. Because I draw just like manually on the paper. It's not digitally drawn, different layers. So it's super complicated. but we managed, and I think it looks great. And yeah, but for me, it's usually the case that my comics are in CMYK. They look really bleak. I dream about a lot of spot colors.
What I do, I wouldn't recommend because I feel like I kind of work in chaos mode when it's just me. I don't really have a team and I don't have a lot of time either because I'm not good at deadlines that I give myself for these fairs. So I know that I'm supposed to be coloring something CMYK for printing. And I know this because I teach this, but do I do it? No. I color everything in RGB because I like it. And then I put my faith in the printer gods. The printer that another thing you shouldn't do. I was just like printing my comics at Staples for literally until like this past SPX. I started printing with Mixum. And I liked the colors at Staples. And I liked it, but it was too expensive and I wasn't making any money. So I should start printing with Mixum. And Mixum's good, but every time I place an order with them for my book, it's a slightly different color. And I don't know what to do about it. So actually, it's a question that I also have. I haven't solved it yet. But my hope is that, one day when I'm finished with all the issues, I'll work with the publisher on making it into a book, and then the publisher will know what to do about color matching, and they will just take my problems away from me, and it's just gonna work out, guys. We live in delusion, and it's good.
Sanika on this. I don't have a team, and I work in Envelope. Also, like I work on paper, so I scan it in, and it's really pretty in RGB. Like the way you're seeing it now is RGB. That's what screens do. And I kind of just put my faith in Mixum or our printer. Okay, it's a little bit and I think the main thing I think about for printing when I'm painting, because I try to keep as many artifacts from painting as possible to be like, hey, this is a real painting. This isn't digital, because that's important for the art, is when I'm scanning, I try not to like edit the pages too much on Photoshop. Like I do a little tweak here and there, but with like black and white comics, you can like adjust your levels so that you get rid of all, artifacts, and I kind of enjoy the artifact. So I kind of let the gods take over my printing.
Perfect. Anybody else from the audience have a question?
I spent all my time doing the line art, and then the color part is like the crap, which I'm talking about pictures. So my question to you is, throughout your entire comic process, what percentage of it that is like, putting into color palette, putting into color, fixing the color on?
Yeah. I wanted to respond to that, Mark. Question. It's the most important part for me. So I'm thinking about it with thumbnailing and I'm setting myself up. I think I've talked about this maybe on calls before. I'm setting myself up basically to have a bunch of things to do. Because the idea is that I'm just trying to do the thing that I like most about comics. So for me, the coloring, it's one and the same for Inky for me. Maybe not for everyone this panel. But I'm just setting the whole process up so that I'm just painting forever, basically. Like everything is revolving around color for me.
I think it takes me the longest time to thumbnail and sketch. If like, and I'm trying to think of like maybe 3 pages. If it takes me 2 days or maybe 3 days to thumbnail and sketch those 3 pages, and this is imagining we're in a world where I do nothing else with my time. I'm just like waking up and doing this. And then it might take me 1 day to ink and 2 to 3 days to color those pages. But the first day is the roughest because I'm trying out a bunch of colors, hating a lot of times, and then like trying to build that palette. But once the first page is done, then I can like be really fast with the rest of it because I figured out the logic of the color and the scene. And I really enjoy that part, but that's not like the most time that I spent doing.
Yeah, with me, it's funny that my process is super long, chaotic. Yeah, when I teach my students, I force them to do sketches, then we do line art, then we do coloring. And this is not the way how I work. Secret. Don't tell them. Yeah, because I have like sometimes I just got some image in my head. And like with Three Sisters, I got this image where the man is naked and the women are dressed up because usually it's vice versa in art history. So there are several images in my head, and actually the Three Sisters were in my head some 10 years. And there are like a lot of things are going on, and then I'm taking the paper, and then I just have some rough sketch with pencil, and then I start to draw. And actually, I let myself also to do mistakes because I'm perfectionist. And when I draw with this cheap markers, I cannot erase them. So there is this kind of fun to let myself make these mistakes. Very rare, I put some paper and glue on. So then I do line art, but then sometimes I start to do line art, then I color a little bit, then I start another page and do line art, and then I color, then it's super. And sometimes, like mostly I don't know with what will be the ending of my comics. It's usually a surprise for myself. So it's like, and with colors, it's also sometimes I do first page and I start to color and I don't like it because it's like as a painter, I work with this and I cannot erase it. I just take another piece of paper and do it. So usually it's like, and I do like 1 or 2 comics per year because I also work day job. So it's, I wish to do more, but it's like it's super painful process. But sometimes it also gets really cool when I do this line art and I do this coloring. Sometimes I got this flow and like really like meditation like state. That's
In my case, I think that I spend more time making line art, but it's such a nice time. I love to make the line art. I spend like hours, for 12 hours making a page, 1,000 pieces. I love myself normally there, like make like little flowers, like every little detail of a tree. I love it. It's such my favorite part of making the comics. And then I have to color it, and I hate myself right now. I always I get the guy that makes the line art. That also happens when I make the script and later I'm reading the script and I have to draw it and it's like, I hate this guy. I don't know how to draw that actually. But well, like the coloring actually takes for me less time, but it feels like 3 times more than making the line art because it's like, and there's like 1,000 things there, 1,000 things happening. Like, me, like my earlier me, like made like 1,000 flowers, but I enjoyed so much drawing them. But like now it's like you have to paint them. It might be like I don't know, like maybe 60-40, 60% the liner, 40% the coloring, but it feels like way. I kind of enjoy it also, but like not that much.
I think we're at time. Do we have time for another question, or are we at time now?
It's 5:30.
Yeah.
If there's no other further questions.
Okay. Maybe one more question, if people don't mind. We started a little bit late. So I wanted to ask one other question. You're all from different parts of the world, which is one thing I love about this panel. We have Carlos from Barcelona, Latvia, Carlos from Florida, and Sanika from India. So can you each talk just briefly about whether kind of your culture comes out in the color, in your color choices, the place where you're from?
I can give a simple answer. It doesn't. I do make comics about Florida, and in that, I'll definitely include the crystal being like blue springs and the green of the gators and all of that. But for this particular project, no, it's just.
And you talked about this.
Yeah. I think for me, it's mostly like old Bollywood movie posters of movies that I didn't even watch, but like movies that had posters like weed pasted all around my neighborhood when I was a kid. And when we were talking about this, I mentioned like this is not even how they make posters right now. The typography used to be really like dramatic and kitschy on purpose in a great way and like tacky, but like in a good way and like very like hand lettered, very over the top, very cheesy. And I loved that so much. And I don't think that that's how movie posters look in India anymore, but I'm nostalgic for the time that I was there. And so for me, that's what Bollywood movie poster looks like, and that's kind of like what I have a lot of fun with. And I used to hate communication design, which is why I switched to illustration, but I have found my way back because of like getting to make title typography for the comics, and I now like spend a lot of time making these like elaborate title images. But even the way the panels are organized, the way things are like crashing into each other and speech balloons are very, very inspired by Bollywood.
Yeah, as I said, for me it's very important that my comics are very local, and I do draw like local nature and local plants and mushrooms. But it's funny that Latvia is actually like we have this branding that we are color like country of gray, 100 shades of gray. It's like we have a lot of like cold months where it's really gray. I love gray actually. Gray is really nice color. I sometimes dress totally in gray, but somehow I draw really bright. But also it's interesting that I have heard some people are saying that it reminds them somehow like Soviet packaging, although it was quite bleak, but there were like, I don't know, like maybe lithography maybe, I don't know. So they were sometimes like this very bright yellow, orange, and then very bright blue, like two colors that maybe overlap each other. So I don't know, maybe I have this kind of impact from Soviet this color palette somehow. But
here I'm with Carly. I mean, Spain is such a colorful country, but my color they don't come from Spain or Spanish culture. Actually, they come more from in Catalonia in the 90s. They started in the TV starting appearing a lot of like Japanese animes. We had like a lot of them. It was such a lot impactful thing. Like all the kids of my generation were watching that. And I think that my love to color comes from there, from all these series that I was watching in late 90s and early 2000s. They were all these like super colorful series that I don't know. I was like also like kind of making my first comic like kind of imitating comic a little like this series. And I think that I keep more like this kind of like Japanese tradition than much.
All right. Well, I want to thank our amazing panelists. I hope you've all enjoyed the conference and enjoyed the night. See you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.